and welcome to Fresh Fusion, a weekly show where we discuss the business, the art, the ethics of content creation on the open web. My name is Jared White, and this episode is titled Product Placements and Ethical Advertising. But before we get into that, let me explain why I have been absent for at least 2 weeks now, right after rebooting this brand new podcast. I got sick, and it was the kind of sick that was not cut and dry. It wasn't like, oh, I know what this is, and I'll be fine in a couple days. It was really the kind of sick that makes you question if you picked up a certain virus that's been going around. After battling with that for a few days and increasingly getting nervous about it, I decided to get tested. And of course, once I decided to get tested, I had to become even more isolated than I already was, basically staying here in my home office doing nothing. Well, I was still working, but otherwise I was doing nothing. It was not great. The whole sort of tail end of November, Thanksgiving, that whole time frame was not pleasant. But the good news is I tested negative. I don't know what it was. I don't even know if it was a virus. Maybe it was just stress reactions from whatever's been going on. But at any rate, I'm well. I hope you are too. And so now we're getting back into the swing of things. It's a funny thing. I've really shied away in recent times of tweeting or writing about what I'm not doing. In the past, I would write long blog posts about why I'm not doing some kind of content creation of whatever sort. Like, here's why I haven't blogged in the last 3 months. But, who cares? Who cares what you're not doing? It's more important to talk about what you are doing. Nevertheless, I did feel obligated finally to tweet, stay tuned for further episodes, not happening this last week, for example. And I just hate to do that. But, sometimes you want to let your fans know kind of what's been going on because, hopefully they'll start to wonder and you might even hear from them like, what happened? Why are there no more episodes? What's going on? So sometimes you do have to tell people what you're not doing. But I much prefer to tell people what I am doing. So what I am doing right now is recording a new episode. Woohoo! Back in the swing of things. There are holidays coming up, Christmas and New Year. So there might be a week somewhere in there where I don't record an episode. But other than that, crossing my fingers here, I'm hoping to keep on doing the weekly show here. All right. One other thing you may notice if you're watching this in video form is I moved my home studio. I relocated it from one side of the bedroom to the other. So this is now on the light side. I have a big, beautiful window here overlooking Portland, which you can't really see here in this video, but it lets in lots of natural light, even on a cloudy day such as this. And combined with my LifeX smart LED light here. I set it to 6,000K or something like that, color temperature to match the outdoors. So that's looking really good. So I'm much happier about my setup here, both in terms of where it's located in this room and also the lighting situation because of that shift. So I'm looking forward to recording more videos, doing more content creation here in my home studio, which is important in these troubled times because so many of us are stuck at home trying to figure out the setups that work for us in our home studios, home offices. You just got to experiment and try different things and move things around and move stuff around again and see what works. So I think where I'm situated right now is going to work pretty well. All right, so on to today's topic. Today's topic is product placements and ethical advertising. Now I want to read you this funny little passage that is from one of my favorite stories of all time, the Anne of Green Gables novels. Anne of Green Gables, Anne Shirley, is an aspiring novelist. She wants to become a writer, And her dear friend Diana, of course, is there to help her out. And her method of helping her dear friend Anne out is to submit an in-progress story to the Rollings Reliable Baking Powder Company, who is hosting a story competition. You had to submit some kind of story that incorporates Rollings Reliable. And so Diana just basically took Anne's novel and then changed the end of the story where, let's see here, Percival clasps Averill in his arms and says, "Sweetheart, the beautiful coming years will bring us the fulfillment of our home of dreams, in which we will never use any baking powder except Rollings Reliable." And that's the end of the story. As you can imagine, Anne was pretty mortified, but she did win the competition and it got everyone talking about her, and maybe that started it all off. But I was thinking about that as I was thinking about this topic because, as I mentioned in the first episode of this rebooted show, as content creators, we have a special relationship with our audience. Because we're putting out content online, sometimes every week, sometimes every day, and we have this sort of special one-way communication directly from us to our audience, and it's unfiltered, it's raw. People feel like they're really hearing from us, from the creators. It's not going through some kind of highly produced corporate sort of, filter of some kind of show that you typically see on traditional TV where, you don't feel like you're watching people, you feel like you're watching actors, even if it's reality TV. You don't really quite believe everyone's genuine. But when you're listening to a podcast like this, when you're watching a video on YouTube, you feel like you have this really special sort of window into the creators' lives, and you're hearing from them unfiltered and raw. So it can get really jarring when you're watching a new video and you're hearing someone talk about a topic, particularly if it seems like a personal topic, like, I've been struggling, I've been going through this or that. And then all of a sudden there's a product placement. And you're like, wait a minute. Was this a real story? Was this a real, genuine explanation of what's been going on lately in this person's life? Or was this just sort of a pretense for, and here's our sponsor, click this link? I just had this experience a week or two ago. And I'm not going to call out the creator because that's not what the show's about. I'm not here to talk smack about anybody. But, it was jarring because, it was someone and they were talking about feeling burnout and feeling stressed out and having so much to do. And, the times that we're in, it makes everything a little more challenging. And so, I'm starting to watch the video and then I'm starting to think like, is this like for real? And I actually skipped towards the end because they've done this before. This is not the first time this particular creator has done this sort of thing. So I skipped towards the end, and it's kind of like, yeah, so as I was saying, it's been hard to get organized. It's been hard to stay motivated, but I've really been getting a lot of help from this tool, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, it's a sponsorship. And I was just like, I don't begrudge anyone getting sponsorships, promoting a product. What I can't abide is when they mix that into the narrative of the story they're telling. All I can think of is this funny part of the Anne of Green Gables novels where, Anne's put all this work into her story, into this, this narrative. Maybe it's cheesy, whatever, but it's a genuine narrative that she has crafted. And then all of a sudden it's like, yes, here we are in our home together where we shall spend our lives, never using any baking powder, but Rollings Reliable. It's just like, oh, come on. I don't know why it bothers me so much. Maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe some people are just like, sure, whatever. Like, if that's what you want to talk about it. I don't care. But, I like clear delineation between content and advertising. I really do. And that's why, for the most part, when I listen to podcasts, do it really well. Because even if it's the creator, even if it's the podcaster themselves doing an ad read, there's usually a clean break. And sometimes during the ad read, they'll talk a little bit about how they use a particular product or service and why they like it. But it's not part of the story. It's not like the podcast episode is about the topic that directly is referenced by the ad read. Usually the topics are about whatever the topics are for the show generally. And then it's like, and now a word from our sponsor. And they do the sponsor read. And it's like, HelloFresh or whatever it is. Build your website with Squarespace. Okay, fine. If you want a website, go build it with Squarespace. That's what this segment's about. And now back to our topic. And you're back to like the content. And there's a clean break between the content and the ad and back to the content. But this gray area where you have product placements essentially, and the narrative of the ad read is woven into the narrative of the content itself. The whole video is really just a pretense to talk about this particular product, that sort of thing. I think it's borderline if you're talking about ethical advertising. I really feel like it's borderline. Does it cross the line? No, because, if you are saying that this company is sponsoring you, at least you're disclosing that. The worst thing is when it's not disclosed. And that has definitely happened where, particularly on, say, Instagram, you have all these influencers where, they're talking about, oh, I love this makeup. It's so awesome. Here's a tutorial about this makeup or whatever. And they don't say that makeup company is sponsoring them. But then you find out later, like, oh, they weren't just like genuinely like, hey, here on my fashion channel today, I want to show you how to apply this special makeup. It's just a pretense for trying to sell a particular brand, but that wasn't disclosed. So that sort of thing has definitely become frowned upon. There's actually rules and regulations and laws even around this sort of thing, so that you have to disclose if you're being sponsored by a company. You maybe have seen on YouTube or Instagram or elsewhere, now you have little bylines at the bottom to say, this is sponsored content and that sort of thing. But, even with a disclosure, I think it's really borderline in terms of ethics to have the entire topic of a video or a podcast episode or whatever it is really just be the pretense to promote a sponsored product or service. So what could you do differently? Well, like I said, I think there should be a clean, delineated line between products and services that you're promoting and the content itself. So, here's something you could do. And I've seen Casey Neistat do this. I think Casey does a pretty good job. He'll do a video about whatever crazy thing he's doing a video about, and then he'll outright say, oh, and by the way, the reason I'm able to go do this crazy video today, trying out some, artificial surf pool thing or whatever it is he's doing. Like, the reason I'm able to do this today is because I got a bunch of money from whatever company to try out their new smartphone camera or whatever it is. So here it is. Here's the new smartphone, blah, blah, blah. And then he'll go back to his topic. And he'll make it funny. He'll make it like, hey, like, I'm here living the life because I got a bunch of money from this company to promote their stuff. So here's their stuff. Isn't that cool? Now back to our episode. And it's just, it's amusing. It doesn't feel like he's sort of pulled a fast one on you because he's really upfront about it. He makes a joke about it. It's almost like he knows this kind of stuff can be awkward. So, you might as well just call out the awkwardness of it all. And I really like that because, it makes it feel like he's being sincere and he's not trying to fool anyone. He's not trying to sneak around things. He's just being completely upfront about it. So maybe that's the takeaway here. Be super upfront about sponsorships, about product placements, as you weave advertising into your content strategy. Just be super upfront about it. Even joke about it if you need to, so that it doesn't come off as insincere, slimy, sneaky, You don't want to lose faith with your audience. That's what's so important. You don't want to lose people's trust. You want them to know that, when you're genuinely recommending a product or service, just normally, that's not part of a sponsorship. Like, they need to feel like that's genuine and not like, oh my gosh, is this another thing that they're promoting just because they got a bunch of money for it? Or is this something they're actually promoting because they love it? You don't want that question to be in your audience minds. So, in other words, to sum up here, don't do the Rollings Reliable thing. Don't write a story and then stick the product placement at the end. Don't record a YouTube video and sneak it in there at the end. If you're putting an ad in your podcast, like, make it clear, like, da-da. Thank you to XYZ Company for sponsoring today's episode, blah, 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 blah. And now back to our episode. Like, make it clear, the delineations there, and I think you'll preserve trust for your audience, and that's the most important thing. Because if you lose the trust of your audience, what do you have as a content creator? Like, that is everything. That is everything. You can lose sponsors, and that sucks because you'll lose money. You can lose, I don't know. There's a lot you can lose that is discouraging as a content creator. But if you lose the trust of your audience, that is it. That's the end. You can't come back from that. I mean, you can try, and maybe you'll succeed. You'll build back up a new audience. But, once you lose the audience you have, that is it. So you gotta put that first and foremost, no matter what. All right, so that's it for today's topic. Thanks for tuning in to Fresh Fusion. Once again, my name is Jared White, and you can find me at jaredwhite.com. You can also find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and other podcast directories. If at all you're able to write a review of this podcast, please do so to let people know about the show. And of course, share links to the episodes on Twitter and elsewhere if you found this show interesting. And I will see you next week. And this time, it really will be next week, unless I fall down and that's the end of me, but hopefully not. All right, bye-bye.